Yeah, Sid, I wanted to talk to you about like the event back in 2013, I think it was, that led to the policy of GitLab being able to get foreign workers into the Netherlands in as a recognized sponsor. And I just wanted to double check with you whether I remember this correctly. So this was in 2013 in one of our one-on-ones. You asked me a question, something like, what would make you leave GitLab, or what is really important to you, right? And after thinking a bit, I remember my priority list at that time was very much top priority number one, leave the country I'm currently in because I want to expand my horizons and live somewhere else. So you asked me, well, would Netherlands be one of the options for you? And I just said, doesn't really matter at this point. I just want to have an option, right? So I remember you saying, okay, well, that sounds okay. And if I start something and make it work for you, would you then hold off from any sort of other job requests that you have? I was like, yeah, that's perfectly fine. So there were a couple of months later, we were talking again about this, and you mentioned that you started figuring out what's necessary to apply for this sponsorship. And I remember at least that this was a very full of legal jargon requirements, right? Like you needed to fill in a lot of documents there. You need to build a business plan as well. And this was early 2014. So we had, I think, 4 of us at the company, and you were still financing everything. And it was still very much, is this even going to work out or not? And I do remember you being very focused on it on top of everything else that was there. So I think a couple of months later, yeah, something like that. A couple of months later, we get a response from the immigration, and you call me, and I still remember where I was sitting, and I remember like the whole setup. You calling me and saying, hey, I got the response from the immigration, and it's actually negative. They rejected us. They said, we don't think this business is going to work, so we only give this license to companies that have a rock solid business plan. And I mean, obviously I'm in my head. So I remember like that being like a big shock for me. I was really hopeful there, and I was like, well, what does that mean now? And all of that. But this is what I want to ask you. I remember you being actually borderline angry. You were like,
sounds plausible.
Who are they to say that the company that I really believe is going to succeed is not going to succeed? You know what? We are going to file a complaint. We are going to ask for this decision to be reversed. And I'm going to hire an immigration lawyer. I'm going to write a business plan. And you listed a couple of other things, and you were very, well, Sid, about it. 5 items that I'm going to do about this. So you were saying, how about hold off? It's going to take a couple of months to get this back. And I remember you showing me a stack of documents at some point in one of our.
I remember now. That was the longest thing ever. Like hundreds of pages we submitted.
Yeah, it was hundreds of pages. And you were like, look, they are going to read this and this is going to work. So hold on. And I honestly, I remember at that time, I was just like, I'm doing my job. I have a contract. So that's something positive. We'll see. And when you called me saying that they reversed the decision and they approved it, I was over the moon, but I think you were happier because it was almost like I proved them wrong. Like I showed them, but I don't even think it was I proved them wrong. It was like, I did all this work. The least you can do is actually read the document type of relief. And I still remember to this day, it was, I think, a month and a half after that, I was on the flight to the Netherlands. It was just a whole roller coaster of emotions in those couple of months. And all the while, I don't even remember the features I worked on at that moment. It was so, like that actually clouded all of the other things that were happening in my life back then. So it was just a big deal for me.
That's so awesome to hear. Yeah, I remember now. And yeah, it was very early GitLab days, and I was convinced of two things: like GitLab is going to do well, and I should really try to keep Marin at the company because he's going to do well in the company. And it's really weird when kind of the government has an opinion of whether your business is going to succeed or not. Like, how can they know? Like, if they know which businesses they succeed, they should become an investor, and they do really well. It's really hard to tell. You need a lot of specialized knowledge to assess that. So I thought the system didn't make sense. I must say I'm grateful they reversed the decision. I'm grateful that today we have, for GitLab team members that have been with us for more than a year, meet the criteria, they can immigrate to the Netherlands. And we now even changed it where if you work for GitLab for even a day and you're in a country where you're at risk for some reason, we can consider waiving that year-long requirement. So I do think the Netherlands has an immigration policy that after you get accepted, it is favorable, and it's a great tool we have to allow people to move to places of greater safety and more better productivity. But that's a great story to recount, Maden, and I'm so glad we made it work. And
Yeah, same.
I'm glad we were able to articulate the prospects of GitLab better at that point.
Yeah, it was excellent. Thanks, Sid.
Thanks, Maden.